What's happening, y'all? Corey Buschlen of Fantasy Stock Exchange coming at you to bring you the DFS recap of the Sunday main slate. Basically, what I'm going to be doing today, as you guys would have seen last week, is I go through the DFS Millie Maker contest on DraftKings and the Sunday Million contest on FanDuel, recap the winning lineups, where they kind of spent up, where they spent down, how is their team construction, correlation, all that kind of stuff. And then I'll go over my own lineups and basically talk about what I could have done better. And I definitely could have done a lot of things better this week, especially. So if you guys haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button, go check out the other videos on the channel, and go check out the website, draftsharks.com as well. I write a weekly GPP lineup advice column, basically tournament lineup advice for FanDuel and for DraftKings that you guys can take into the Millie Maker contest or into smaller field tournaments and help you win some money that way. So without further ado, guys, let's get right into this. So we're going to start with the DraftKings side of things. Topher 1072 was the winner of the Millie Maker. And as you guys can see, this was one of those weeks in DFS. If you guys played DFS this week, you basically needed certain players in your lineup on the main slate to hit and cash value, because the problem with DFS sometimes is sometimes players go off and there's like 3 or 4 of them each main slate. And if you don't have them in your lineup, it's pretty hard to win a large field contest like the Millie Maker contest that this guy won. So as you guys can see, he kind of lucked out. He did have Cooper Kupp, he did have Derrick Henry, and he did have Tyler Lockett, Tom Brady as well. Those were some of those big pieces that if you didn't have Derrick Henry in your lineup, if you didn't have Cooper Kupp in your lineup, and I actually played against both of them in my home league, which was horrible. But if you guys didn't have those guys in your lineup, it was probably pretty hard for you to cash in these DraftKings lineups this week. As you guys can see, his lineup was a little bit not very correlated. Again, I don't really want to judge the guy because he won the Millie Maker. I didn't. But Tom Brady, Leonard Fournette, Rob Gronkowski, he kind of triple stacked the Bucs offense there, trying to get a piece of the running game and the passing game. Obviously, Brady and Gronk connected for 2 touchdowns in that one, so that definitely worked out for him. Derrick Henry, again, he kind of like played Derrick Henry, ran it back with Tyler Lockett, but he probably could have stacked that game a little bit more. Rondale Moore obviously had a big game, and he kind of lucked out on that one. Marvin Jones, not so much, and he played the Cardinals defense as well. So overall, congrats to Topher 1072. Again, the unfortunate thing about a contest this size, the Millie Maker contest, is that you need those blow-up guys. If there's 3 or 4 guys that have 40-point plus weeks in this type of contest and you don't have them, you can't win the Millie Maker, because with this many people in the tournament, there's a good chance that somebody has all of them like this guy did. A couple takeaways from this guy's lineup is he just targeted higher scoring games. And when you do that, you're going to cash more often than not, because he targeted Tom Brady, Leonard Fournette, Rob Gronkowski in the Atlanta Falcons, Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. Obviously, they had the highest implied point total of any team on the slate, which was a good, time to target that stack. And then Derrick Henry, Tyler Lockett, that game was supposed to be high scoring as well. Cooper Kupp, that game, I talked about Cooper Kupp and the Rams offense in my article on Friday. So I really like what he did in his lineup there. Like I said, the correlation was a little wonky, but he definitely got the job done. Now, looking at my lineups and what I could have learned from this guy, obviously I did stack the right game by the looks of it in this first lineup. I took Tannehill, AJ Brown, and Julio Jones. The problem was the game script went as I hoped, right? The Titans were down in this game. I thought they were going to have to throw to get back in it. But what ended up happening, instead of throwing to get back into the game, they continued to run the ball, and Derrick Henry kind of just picked up steam and got them back into the game. So had I stacked the opposite side of the spectrum, and had I stacked Russ, Metcalf, and Lockett, and then ran it back with Derrick Henry instead of doing the opposite of what I did, which was stack Ryan Tannehill, AJ Brown, Julio Jones, ran it back with Metcalf. If I would have done the opposite, I might have had a much better score in this one. And again, kind of another trend from last week is that I wasn't able to pick running backs very well in this game. Zeke Elliott had an okay game, but David Montgomery was a guy that I was really excited about this week, and he didn't get the job done. He didn't get into the end zone, had, good amount of touches, as David Montgomery will always, but didn't get the job done from what I expected. Darnell Mooney was an okay, value pick that I thought would pay off, and Noah Fant, okay tight end option as well. Overall, I kind of was just missing ceiling in this lineup. I didn't get any kind of blow up weeks. And like I said, when you have big blow up games like Cooper Kupp, Derrick Henry, and some of these other guys had, it's pretty hard to beat them if you don't have those guys in your lineup, because you can't really get the job done with kind of mediocre performances, which is what I saw across the board in this lineup. Like I said, the process was sound here. I did stack a game that I thought was going to be high scoring. It just kind of went in the other direction, and it didn't end up bearing out the way I wanted it to. So process was sound here. I just kind of picked the wrong players. So that's going to happen from time to time. Sometimes we don't know which players are going to go off, but as long as you kind of stick to the process, I did pick the right game here. I did stack, properly. I just didn't pick the right players, and the game script kind of went in the opposite direction. So the other DraftKings lineup that I did, as you guys can see on the screen, this was the opposite case, right? I didn't take the right game in this one. I really thought this was a risk that was worth taking. A lot of people were down on this game. I didn't see anybody talking about this in other DFS content areas. So I thought this might have been a bit of a contrarian game to go after, but there's a reason Vegas stays in business. This game had a 45-point over-under, and the game I'm talking about is the Bengals and Bears game. I attacked this game because I thought it actually could bear some fruit. Joe Mixon, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. I really stacked the Bengals offense in this one, ran it back with Allen Robinson on the other side of things. Again, if this game had been 42-36, then I probably would have won a lot of money. So that I stick to the process here, but maybe I should pay a little bit more attention to over-unders on Vegas because they know a thing or two about setting those lines. They've been in business a long time. So I definitely picked the wrong game here. But again, this could have worked out, obviously, in the but again, had this worked out, this lineup might have been very good because Chris Carson gave me a decent contribution. DK Metcalf was okay. The Jets defense, I mean, they got blown out, but not bad. And Rob Gronkowski at tight end was a good pick. So if this game ended up being high scoring instead of the low scoring game that it was, I might have done really well with this lineup, obviously. So again, process maybe was there in terms of how I stack the game and stuff like that, but I picked the wrong game to stack because it definitely did not bear fruit. Instead of stacking this game, I probably should have stacked the Cardinals and Vikings because that game would have probably bared a lot more fruit than the one that I did. And this is why Vegas stays in business. So moving from DraftKings over to FanDuel, you guys can see the winning lineup of the Sunday Million on the screen. As I talked about already, if you didn't have Derrick Henry in your lineup, if you didn't have Kyler Murray or Tom Brady or Cooper Kupp, Tyler Lockett, some of these huge blowout performances, it was really hard to win a tournament of this size. And you guys can see this guy had a number of those players, Kyler Murray, Derrick Henry, Cooper Kupp, all scored over 30 points. And then he had Tyler Lockett and Rondale Moore, obviously, score a number of points for him too, and the Buffalo Bills defense. So again, a couple things to take away from this guy's lineup. When we look at how he kind of constructed his team, again, not a lot of correlation with what he did. He did take Kyler Murray, who's a rushing quarterback who usually gets most of his own points, stacked him with Rondale Moore and not with DeAndre Hopkins. So that was kind of an interesting differentiation that he went with. Not necessarily something I would do, but in a big, large field tournament like this, I think it's kind of worth that kind of risk, and it obviously paid off for him. Derrick Henry, Tyler Lockett, Cooper Kupp, again, just taking games that he thought were going to be high scoring and stacking players in those games. Again, he didn't opt to go for a huge mega stack or a triple stack with a run back or anything like that. What he did was just stack games that he thought were going to be high scoring. And again, if you do that more often than not, you're probably going to make a good amount of money if you hit on those games. And game selection is 100% one of the keys to playing DFS. It was something I struggled with this week because and again, you're going to see it in a second. This was the game that I decided to stack because I thought it was going to be very, very high scoring, and it ended up not being high scoring. It was one of the lowest scoring games of the slate. In fact, only 37 points in this game. The over-under of this Chargers-Cowboys game was set at 55 going into the game, and the Sharps were actually on the under. So again, another thing that I'm going to try and highlight in my DFS articles going forward is which side the Sharps are on, if they're on a side. So that way I can kind of give you guys the best information possible, because Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Jared Cook, and then Amari Cooper on the run back. Again, the process was probably sound on that perspective, but this game was not high scoring. I thought this game would have been one that the Cowboys may have gotten out to a big lead in, and then the Chargers were forced to play from behind, maybe a bit of a shootout type of atmosphere, and Justin Herbert would have been throwing the ball over the yard. That's not exactly what happened. He did throw the ball 41 times, but the Chargers weren't very effective through the air, and that game didn't necessarily pan out the way I wanted it to. And again, this lineup was overall, it was pretty decent. I got, Christian McCaffrey as one of my main running backs. Stephon Diggs, Deontay Johnson had okay games. My value play, Elijah Moore, he gave me something. But if this game had hit its ceiling, this Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Jared Cook, and Amari Cooper kind of 3-stack and run back would have given me a lot more to be excited about in this lineup, because obviously game selection was a big problem for me this week. But it was a big problem for a lot of people. I wasn't the only one on this Chargers-Dallas game. A lot of people, this was the chalkiest game of the week. And sometimes even the chalk doesn't work out. I stacked it like crazy, expecting it to be a super, super high ceiling type of matchup. And instead it burned me to a big degree. And it probably burned a lot of you guys out there if you took my advice. So that's it, guys. Basically, that is the DFS recap of the Sunday main slate. Again, I'm kind of 0 for 2 so far these first 2 weeks. So I definitely need to get back to the lab, get going on this week's DFS, because I, have some ground to make up. I haven't really been too sharp with my picks these first 2 weeks. I need to make some money back that I've lost in these first 2 weeks, and I'm going to try and help you guys make those decisions as well. So again, make sure you guys stay tuned to the website, draftsharks.com. Stay tuned for my weekly GPPs article on FanDuel and DraftKings. Hope to be bringing you guys some money this week, and hopefully I can have some more luck in my own lineups going forward than I did this week on the 3 lineups that I did on DraftKings and FanDuel. So again, peace out, guys. I'll talk to you soon.